I bought my parents a luxury car and wiped out every cent of their debt, thinking it was the least I could do after everything. But at my mom's retirement party, she smiled wide and said loud enough for others to hear, "We raised a fool who thinks he's important just because he pays our bills." That's when I stopped. Just like that, payments canceled, and not long after, my phone lit up with 105 missed calls. I've always been that guy, the one who never says no. "Can you help out with rent this month?" "Sure." "Can you take care of this unexpected bill?" "No problem." Because what kind of son lets his own parents struggle, right? Of course I said yes, over and over, for years. I've been the one keeping everything afloat financially. It started off small, just helping out now, and then when they were short on cash or an unexpected expense came up. But it didn't stay small. Before I realized what was happening, I was footing the bill for nearly everything: the mortgage, the car payments, my mom's medical expenses, even my dad's golf club fees. And it wasn't just money they leaned on me for. It was anything I had to give. I'm a corporate attorney, one of the top performers in my firm. My weeks are stacked with 70-hour grinds, negotiating massive contracts so my clients never have to step foot in a courtroom. There's no wife waiting at home, no kids, no weekend getaways, no real time for anything beyond work. And my family knew it, took full advantage of it. My sister Claire? She'd gotten used to calling whenever rent was due or her phone broke again. My cousin Mark, he runs a failing construction business, was getting free legal services from me for everything under the sun: contract disputes, settlements, lawsuits. And my parents? They expected me to handle every little thing. I drafted their wills, renegotiated their insurance, and even cleaned up after my dad rear-ended someone in a parking lot. So when the time came for my mom to finally retire, I wanted her to do it with zero stress. I paid off their house, cleared every last bit of debt, and surprised them with a luxury car, something my dad always dreamed of but never managed to afford. I thought maybe, just this once, they'd look at me with pride. That maybe I'd finally be something more than their personal bank account. But I was wrong, so wrong. The comment wasn't meant for my ears. The embarrassment wasn't supposed to land on me. Her retirement bash was extravagant: elegant restaurant, live music, over 100 people from all corners of her life. I organized everything, handled the catering, reserved the venue, even put together a slideshow of her career milestones. At one point, I stepped outside to take a client call. When I walked back in, I heard my mom's voice drifting from the hallway by the restrooms. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but then I heard my name. "Logan really believes that just because he pays for everything, it makes him important." I stopped in my tracks. My Aunt Linda's laugh followed. "Well, you did say he's a bit naive." Then came the sigh, long and theatrical. "Of course he is," my mom said. "We raised a fool who thinks he's special just because he covers all our bills." Laughter broke out. Easy, effortless. Like they were chatting about the weather. "Well, at least he's useful." My dad chuckled. "He brings in the cash." "And free legal help," Mark added, grinning. "Not the worst kind of fool to keep around." I just stood there, frozen. A fool, that's what I was to them. Not a son, not a brother, just a convenient idiot with deep pockets and legal expertise. And something inside me broke. They never saw this part coming. I walked back into that banquet hall with my heart pounding like a war drum. The room was alive with laughter and music, glasses clinking, people smiling. No one had the slightest idea that everything was about to shift. I made a straight line for my table, pulled out my phone, and right there in plain view, I opened my banking app. "What are you doing?" Claire asked, her eyebrows pulling together. One by one, I started canceling every automatic payment tied to their accounts: mortgage, utilities, car loans, insurance. "Gone," I said, slipping my phone back into my pocket like I had just deleted their lifeline. "What do you mean gone?" my dad asked, his drink halfway to his mouth. I let out a breath I'd been holding for years. "It means you're officially on your own." The smile on my mom's face dropped in an instant. "Logan, don't be ridiculous," she snapped. Her voice had that edge. I chuckled, short and bitter. "No, Mom. What's ridiculous is how long I let this go on. You think I'm naive for paying your bills? Fine, let's see how you manage without my so-called foolishness." Silence fell across the room like a switch had been flipped. "Logan, you can't be serious," Aunt Linda said, her laugh suddenly nervous. "Dead serious." I turned to Mark. "And you? If you need legal help, hire someone. I'm done doing your work for free." Mark clenched his jaw. "You're really doing this? Over a dumb joke?" "No," I said, steady and cold. "I'm doing this because I finally see all of you for what you really are." Claire rolled her eyes like a teenager. "God, grow up." "Actually," I said, "I'm acting like a lawyer who just voided a toxic contract." And just like that, I turned around and walked out. And none of them, not one, tried to stop me. The first 2 days were quiet, not a word from anyone. Then the calls started rolling in. Mom was the first. Logan, sweetheart, I think you forgot to send the money for the electric bill. Can you take care of that today? Ignored. Then Dad, son, this is serious. The insurance payments due. Also ignored. Then Claire, you're really punishing all of us over one stupid comment? Grow up. Ignored again. By the end of the week, I'd racked up 37 missed calls. By the end of the month, that number hit 105. And that was when the real chaos began. At first, I thought maybe they'd take a step back, reflect, reevaluate. I was wrong. The silence didn't last. After ignoring over 100 missed calls, they decided it was time to switch tactics. It began with guilt-laced messages. My mom wrote, "Logan, we're your family. Families don't treat each other like this." My dad followed with, "Your mother's a wreck. She hasn't slept in days. Don't you care at all?" Then came Claire, "So you're really just going to leave us behind like we're complete strangers?" I didn't respond. When that didn't work, they moved on to social media. Claire posted one of those thinly veiled jabs, saying, "Some people only help others so they can throw it back in their face later. Real love doesn't keep score." I actually laughed when I read it. Unconditional love. I'd been quietly covering her expenses for years, never asking for anything. But the second I stopped, I became the villain. Then the messages turned desperate. Mom wrote, "Logan, they shut off the electricity today. We're sitting in the dark. How could you do this to us?" And for a moment, I felt a pang of guilt. But then I remembered, I'd been the one paying that bill for years, and every time I brought up budgeting or long-term planning, Mom would just wave it off with a sweet, "Don't worry, honey, we'll figure it out." Well, now was the time to figure it out. Then came the ambush. About a week later, they showed up uninvited at my office. I was in the middle of reviewing a case when my assistant buzzed in, sounding unsure. "Logan, your family's here. No appointment. But they're insisting it's urgent." Of course they were. I sighed, rubbing my eyes, told her to send them to the conference room. When I walked in, they were already seated. Mom, Dad, and Claire, all three of them wearing expressions that hovered somewhere between frustration and self-righteous indignation. Mom jumped right in. "This has gone on long enough. You've made your point. Now let's be reasonable." I leaned against the table and asked, "Reasonable about what, exactly?" She snapped, "The bills, Logan, we're behind on everything: mortgage, insurance, the car." "Not my problem," I said without a hint of hesitation. Dad looked at me, disbelief on his face. "You can't just cut us off like this. We're your family." "Oh, I can." And I did. Claire folded her arms, glaring. "So you're just going to let us drown? After everything? You mean after I spent years working myself into the ground to cover everything while you all sat back and laughed at me behind my back?" I shot back. She rolled her eyes. "It was just a joke. You're blowing this way out of proportion." I stepped closer, placing both hands on the table. "Let's make something really clear. You mocked me, you used me, and now that I've finally put up a boundary, I'm suddenly the bad guy? That's not how this works." Mom softened her tone, shifting into that fake concern she used so well. "Sweetheart, we never wanted to hurt you. We just thought you liked helping us." "Liked it?" I gave a bitter laugh. Did I ever even have a choice? The silence that followed said everything. Dad tried again, switching gears. "Okay, let's make a deal. Maybe you don't cover everything anymore, but just the important stuff: the house, the car, the insurance. That's fair, right?" I smiled. "Sure, let's make a deal." For a second, I saw hope flicker across their faces. Then I added, "I'll pay for everything again if you sign a contract agreeing to repay every cent, with interest." Their expressions collapsed in unison. "Logan, be serious," Mom snapped. "Oh, I am." I pulled a blank legal contract from my briefcase and laid it on the table. "Since you love using me for my legal expertise, let's make it official." Claire's mouth fell open. "You want us to pay you back? You never asked that before. And you never appreciated it before," I said, without missing a beat. Dad slammed his palm on the table. "You're acting like we're strangers." I met his glare calmly. "No, I'm just finally seeing things clearly. You only tolerated me because I kept the money flowing. Let's see how you feel when that flow stops." The room went quiet. Mom stared down at the contract, then up at me. "You're actually serious?" "Dead serious." She stood up abruptly, pushing back her chair. "Fine, keep your money, but don't come crawling back when you realize you still need your family." "I won't." Claire stormed out first, followed by my father. My mother lingered for a second longer before leaving without another word. I exhaled slowly and leaned back in my chair. For the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't known I was missing. Relief. A month went by. The missed call slowed. The guilt trip text finally faded. Then one afternoon, a message from Claire popped up. "We're selling the house. Mom and Dad can't keep up without your help." I stared at it for a while. Then I typed a reply. "Not my problem. Good luck." And for the first time in my life, I hit send without feeling even a flicker of guilt. After they stormed out of my office, I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd finally back off. I should have known better. They shifted gears again. First came the emotional pleas. Linda, an old family friend, sent me a long, heartfelt text about how important family is and how I was turning my back on the people who raised me. Dad left a voicemail, his voice heavy with theatrical disappointment. I thought I raised a better man than this. Logan, you're letting all of us down. Claire? She didn't bother with subtlety, just one line, you're pathetic. I ignored all of it. Then they got creative. One evening, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. Logan, hey, it's Tom. Tom, my parents' neighbor, a guy I'd known for years but barely spoken to in recent ones. Hey, Tom, everything okay? He hesitated. Listen, man, I saw your folks the other day. They're not doing well. Your mom's been crying nonstop. Your dad looks like he's wasting away. They're struggling. Logan. I clenched my jaw, waiting for it. They need you, buddy. I know there's been drama, but come on, that's your family. You really gonna let them lose the house? And there it was, the guilt trip, this time delivered by a third party. Did they tell you why they're in this mess? I asked quietly. Another pause. Did they mention that I paid their mortgage, their bills, their car loans for years? Silence. No, I didn't think so. I took a deep breath. Tom, I respect you. I really do, but don't ever call me about this again. I hung up before he could respond. They thought they were setting me up for a grand moment of reconciliation, but what they didn't understand was that I had already left, and I wasn't coming back. About a week later, I got a call from HR. My heart immediately dropped when I heard the tone of the woman on the other end. Logan, we need to have a conversation. Something's come up. That knot in my stomach tightened. What kind of something? She hesitated, then said, a woman called this morning, claimed to be your mother. She was extremely upset, said you'd had some sort of mental breakdown. For a second, I just sat there stunned. She said what? Apparently, she was really insistent, told us she was worried about your emotional well-being. She even suggested maybe you were working too hard and might need some time off. And just like that, the shock burned into rage. This wasn't just manipulation anymore. This was a direct attack on my livelihood, an attempt to dismantle the only thing in my life they hadn't already taken advantage of. You realize that's complete nonsense, right? I said, barely holding it together. We figured, but she was convincing. She framed it like a serious mental health issue. We had to check in. Well, I'm fine, I said through gritted teeth, and if she ever calls here again, tell her to stay the hell out of my life. I hung up, furious. They were escalating, and I could feel it deep in my gut. This wasn't the last of it. 2 weeks later, the final stunt landed. I was in the middle of prepping court notes when I saw a voicemail from Claire, marked urgent. Against my better judgment, I hit play. Logan, please. I know you're mad at us, but I need your help. It's about Dad. He's in serious trouble. I wanted to ignore it, but despite everything, some part of me, the part that hadn't been completely crushed, still cared enough to call her back. She answered on the first ring. Her voice sounded ragged, like she'd been crying. What's going on? She sniffled. Dad borrowed money from some dangerous people, loan sharks. He didn't tell us until it was too late. Now they're threatening to take the house. I rubbed my eyes, trying to hold back the headache that was forming. Claire, cut the act. I'm not lying. They showed up at the house, said if we don't come up with 50 grand by the end of the month, they're coming after us legally. That made me pause, but not because I believed her, because I knew it was a setup. I'm a lawyer. I've seen how real loan sharks operate. They don't use courtrooms. They don't send letters. They don't threaten lawsuits. They send a guy with a bat. And 50,000? That was the exact amount I used to give my parents every year to cover all their bills. Too perfect. Put Dad on the phone. He's not home right now, she said quickly. I want to hear this from him. He's too stressed to talk. It's been hard on him. That was all I needed. This wasn't desperation. It was a performance. You're terrible at this, I said coldly. Logan, I swear it's real. Then tell me the name of the lender. She stammered. First Capital Lending? I actually laughed. That's a registered bank, Claire. Not exactly what comes to mind when you say loan shark. She went quiet. You just made that up, didn't you? She didn't answer. Don't even bother next time. If you're going to run a scam, at least do your homework. Logan, please. Good luck with your imaginary debt. I hung up. That was it, the final straw. I blocked all their numbers, changed my email, even told the receptionist at the firm to never patch any family calls through to me again. For the first time in years, I could breathe. A week later, my mother sent one last message. We're selling the house. Hope you're happy. I stared at the screen for a moment, then typed back, I am. And I meant it. Cutting them off should have been the end of it. But people like them, They don't quit. Not really. At first, nothing, no voicemails, no texts, just blissful quiet. It had been weeks since the loan shark stunt, and I started to believe maybe, just maybe, they'd given up. Then the phone rang again. This time, it was Uncle Hank. I almost didn't answer. He wasn't someone I was close to, just a distant relative from another state. But curiosity got the better of me. Hey, Logan, it's Hank. Hey, everything okay? Look, I hate getting in the middle of family stuff, but your mom called. She told me you've abandoned them. I rolled my eyes so hard it hurt. Did she also mention that I covered their bills for years? She might have left that out. Figures. I'm not trying to pick sides here, but they're losing the house. Your dad's falling apart. Claire's barely hanging on. That's not my responsibility anymore, Hank. He sighed. I get it. I really do. But family is still family, you know? I clenched my jaw. Did she tell you why I walked away? Or did she just cry on the phone and play the victim? There was silence on the line. Let me save you the trouble. I paid off their debts. I kept a roof over their heads. I even bought them a luxury car. And what did I get in return? What? They laughed at me, mocked me, called me a fool, said the only reason they tolerated me was because I paid for everything. Hank didn't say a word. That's who you're calling on behalf of, I added. That's who they really are. And I hung up. They didn't give up. Not even after all the missed calls, the silence, the slammed door at my office. I had been foolish to think they would. It started small texts from mom and dad, pretending to be gentle, guilt-laced lines like, Logan, we're your family. Families don't abandon each other. Then dad chimed in with, your mother's a wreck. She can't sleep. Does that mean nothing to you? And Claire, of course, took her shot too. So that's it? You're really just leaving us to rot like we're nothing? I didn't respond, not to a single one. So they changed tactics. I started seeing passive-aggressive jabs popping up on social media. Claire posted this gem. Some people only do things for others so they can throw it in their face later. Real love doesn't come with strings. I actually laughed out loud when I read it. Real love? I had paid her rent, her credit card debt, her damn vet bills for years, and not once did I throw it in her face. But now that I stopped being their personal ATM, suddenly I was the villain? Then they got crafty, desperate. Mom texted again. Logan, the power got cut today. We're sitting in the dark. That one almost worked. Almost. But I caught myself. I've been covering that electric bill for how many years? Every time I offered to help them make a budget, Mom would smile and brush it off like it wasn't worth discussing. We'll figure it out, sweetheart. Don't stress. Well, guess what? Now it's their turn to figure it out. And just when I thought they might finally take the hint, they showed up, in person, at my job. I was knee-deep in case notes when my assistant buzzed me. Logan, your family's here. No appointment. They say it's urgent. I closed my eyes, rubbed my temples, and sighed. Should have known they'd escalate. Put them in the conference room. When I walked in, all three were sitting there. Mom, Dad, Claire, all of them looking like I'd committed treason. Mom was the first to speak. Logan, enough is enough. You made your point. Now let's just fix this. Fix what? I asked, leaning casually on the edge of the table. She snapped. The bills, everything's overdue, the mortgage, the car, the insurance. Not my problem, I said slowly, clearly. Dad scoffed and shook his head. You can't just cut us off like this. We're family. I looked him straight in the eye. I can. And I did. Claire crossed her arms, eyes narrowed. So you're just gonna let us suffer? Is that it? I didn't move. You mean the way I suffered? Working 70-hour weeks to pay for everything while you lounged around and laughed at me behind my back. Oh, come on, she scoffed. It was a joke. You're blowing this up for no reason. I stepped closer, planted my hands on the table, and stared her down. You laughed at me. You mocked me. You used me. And now, because I finally stood up for myself, I'm the bad guy? No, not anymore. Mom tried softening again, the tone she always used when she wanted something. Sweetheart, we didn't mean to hurt you. We just thought. We assumed you liked helping us. I barked a bitter laugh. Did I ever have a choice? Silence. Exactly. Dad shifted gears. All right, let's compromise. You don't have to cover everything. Just help with the big stuff, house, car, insurance. That's fair, right? I smiled. Sure, let's make a deal. For a second, they looked hopeful, and then I pulled out a blank contract from my briefcase. I'll pay for it all again. If you sign this, you'll pay me back. Every cent, with interest. Their faces dropped like stones. Logan, that's ridiculous. Mom snapped. Oh, I'm very serious. Claire's jaw dropped. You expect us to pay you back? You never asked for that before. And you never thanked me before. I shot back. Dad slammed his hand on the table. You're acting like we're strangers. I looked at him, calm and steady. Because the only reason you tolerated me was my paycheck. Let's see if you still want me around when all I bring is myself. Mom stared at the contract, then at me. You're actually serious. Dead serious. She stood up. Fine, keep your damn money, but don't expect us to come crawling back when you realize you need us. I won't. Claire stormed out first, then Dad. Mom lingered just long enough to look hurt, like I was supposed to feel something. But I didn't. I sat down in that chair after they left and exhaled, for the first time in my life. I felt free. The fallout didn't take long. A few weeks later, Claire texted me. We're selling the house. Mom and Dad can't afford it without you. I stared at that message, then typed back. Not my problem. Good luck. I hit send without a flicker of guilt. But they weren't done yet. Linda, some distant cousin I hadn't seen in years, sent me a long, emotional essay about the importance of family. My dad left a voicemail, voice dripping with shame. I thought I raised a better man. Logan, Claire? She sent one word, pathetic. I ignored them all. Then they got clever. I got a call from an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Logan, hey, it's Tom, my parents' neighbor. He said he saw them recently and that they looked terrible. Your mom's crying all the time. Your dad's barely eating. They're losing everything. I know things got messy, but come on, man, they're your family. There it was, the guilt trip, outsourced to a third party. Did they tell you why they're in this mess? I asked him. Long pause. Not really. I paid their bills for years, mortgage, debt, cars, you name it. They lived off me. Silence again. Tom, I respect you, but don't call me about this again. And I hung up. But it didn't stop there. They made a GoFundMe. A public one, with pictures of me as a child, smiling, innocent, and a caption, her son, a wealthy lawyer, cruelly cut her off. Now she's sick and could lose her home. Please help the struggling mother. And at the bottom, they'd already raised over $12,000. I clenched my fists. They were scamming strangers now, and worst of all, it was working. But they messed up. They used my full name. That's when I decided to finish this. I called a friend in cybersecurity. Within hours, he tracked the IP address running the fundraiser. Guess where it pointed? Claire's laptop. Gotcha. I forwarded everything to my lawyer. Hey, Miles, still take defamation cases? Always, he said. Who's the target? My family. He whistled after seeing the screenshots. Man, they crossed the line. No more warnings, I told him. No mercy. Within 2 days, the fundraiser was shut down. The money? Frozen. Claire called me in a rage. You had no right. I had every right, I said coolly. It's called fraud, Claire. We were just trying to survive. No, you were trying to steal, and now you'll deal with the consequences. Oh, and GoFundMe's fraud department. They've got your info too. Click. A week later, Uncle Hank told me Claire had to return the donations. Mom and Dad? Still drowning. That was their last lifeline. Gone. A month passed. One final voicemail from my mother. Her voice was hollow. All the performance was gone. Logan, I know you hate us, but we're your family. I just don't know what to do anymore. Please, just talk to me. I listened to the whole thing. Then I deleted it. I didn't owe them anything. Not anymore. And I never looked back.